Hey, it's Chris, talking about Mass Effect. They sent it, let's talk about it, as a dungeon crawl light-esque style game. Eric Lang, Calvin Wong Zhe-Lun. This is reflective of two designers' hard work on the tabletop. Retail, what you need to know, what's on the table in front of me, running through a scenario so you can get a feel of this cooperative crawl type game. You ready? Give you the key points, the key mechanisms to play, and then my final thoughts. Let's go. This game is set in a crawl-style Mass Effect universe where you get to choose your situations on a scenario-by-scenario basis, walking you through the options that are going to be potentially in front of you to basically, well, in the end, score as many victory points as you can to see how well you did. But along the way, right, the journey is the experience, and that's what this game provides. Calvin and Eric, their fingerprints are heavily noticeable on all aspects of this game. This game is incredibly approachable, but it's also going to give depth for those looking for not just a lighter get to the table crawl in the first place. It's going to give you a Venn diagram overlapping mesh of the two of those. Why? How? Let's run you through what you need to know to figure out whether or not this is right for you. This game actually comes with 3 books, one of which is already on the table in front of me, 2 of which I'm holding right here. 1, your handbook. This is narrative because you're going to have a little bit slight different results and rewards or not, depending on how you do on a mission by mission, scenario by scenario basis. Then obviously you have your big thick rule book. Truth be told, it's almost 50 pages long. You know what? Side note though here, it's really, really well written. Really. And I give a lot of kudos because that is not always the case, especially with crawl type games as well. Then the 3rd book is actually sitting in front of me here. This is the mission book. On one half, it tells you the missions. On the other half is the map setup. And you can see iconography, miniatures to go along with it. We'll get there in a second. The last element of things, as I was talking, you have a couple sheets that are extra. First up is your campaign map sheet. And essentially, this is the core crux of the game. In the first given scenario, you have 3 different options. And then based on how you do, you get additional options that are going to be available to you at your choosing. So if you go to 1A, you'll have the option of 2A or 2B. 1B will give you 2B or 2C. 1C will give you 2C or 2D. But along the way, you'll also notice in between, we have a little bit of loyalty scenarios. And these loyalty scenarios in between 1 and 2, 2 and 3 are ways that your characters, your side heroes, if you will, can unlock special abilities if you want to complete them. And that's the main key feature here, is if you want a longer campaign with more upgrades, more abilities, more experience, more tactical strategery along the way, you can do these loyalty ones. But they say, you know what, if you just want a straight 3 scenario based situation, you can skip those. You're not going to be missing out, but they're optional, but highly useful as well. And you're going to be slowly upgrading your characters along the way in several different aspects, ability-wise, experience-wise. And so what you're going to be doing is slowly marking these off. And you'll notice that in each of these, actually, there are 3 different conditions as well. There's the Paragon victory, the Renegade victory, and the secondary objective. So each mission is going to give you one way of winning that you're going to achieve, a secondary objective that may get you bonuses, and then war victory points, war readiness, as they call it, in order to say, how good did you do this? And you know what? You're going to look at that and go, is it actually necessary? Well, there are 2 dynamically different victory conditions for each scenario. One, the Renegade, is really more of a smash and grab. If you just want to smash and grab, you can go ahead and do it. Might be shorter, might be sweeter, might be a little more dangerous for your characters. Then the other side of things, the Paragon, is going to be a little bit more strategic overall. So for the example of the scenario, I have 1B set up in front of me. This is the Guns of Cerebus. So I'm trying to venture across this hex-based map here. And as you can see, sort of at the top, there are terminals represented by the orange spots right here. And so if I want to win, say in this mode, on the left side of this page, it tells me the 3 ways in which I'm going to be trying to achieve victory. 1, the Paragon. There are 3 terminals. There are multiple mission objectives that I can pick up off the map, carry with my character, and drop them off at the terminals. If I can do that with 3 of them, all 3 of the terminal spots, I win that way. The second way is in this mission, there is 1 elite token, the Centurion. If I knock out the Centurion, we'll talk about how the elites are different than the minions you'll be fighting along the way, then I also win. The secondary objective is, because there are actually 5 of these objective question mark tokens on the map, if I am carrying at least 2 of them at the end, then I get an additional victory reward. I'll run you through the rest of the iconography as we go through the scenario, but the basic gist of it is I have 4 characters on every single scenario, and you're going to be hearing that and going, oh geez, just like I did, right? A dungeon crawler that is going to require me to have 4 characters. That's probably the biggest limitation I have physically on this table in front of me, is I have 4 of these massive character sheets that are each set up with their own unique individual abilities, their health, their shield, and all of the cool stuff, the action spots on the dice placement. And that means if there's dice placement spots here, you're limited to how many times you can use this action. So for example, hack on Shepherd here, disable a turret in his hex or unlock a door bordering his hex. Now I can use the regular action or I can use the enhanced action there. Shoot, deal 1 damage to an enemy in line of fire, deal 2 damage instead if I use the enhanced. And what that means is that I'm going to be rolling my dice on a turn-by-turn, round-by-round basis. This is the other main mechanism. At the beginning of the game, you start out with 12 of these regular dice that have movements on the sides, the exclamation point, which is your action, both the white and the blue, the enhanced, the star, which if you're familiar with other Lang games, he loves the exploder dice. That's what the star equivalent are. And those activate special abilities that are unique between all of the 4 characters that are slowly going to make them more asymmetric, but also going to give you just a little bit from the get-go, because you not only get to spend or utilize that star, if I can find it, but then you also get to re-roll it again and get whatever there. Now, the interesting twist here is because you have 4 characters, each character gets 3 actions per turn, which means I have 12 dice, there are 4 characters, you do the math, right? 3 dice per character. So the first person is going to have all 12 of these that they're going to be rolling out on the table and seeing what they get. So here you can see kind of what it looks like. There's also a couple that are split either between move or action. And so the first person is going to take whatever 3 combination they want and allocate them to those positions on the board. And then the next person has the option to lock one of those dice, grab all of them otherwise that are there, and re-roll them. So second person is going to have the option of 9. Third person 6, last person is only going to get 3 dice. And so how you're going to be able to utilize those, what's going to be available to you is going to become harder as things go along, but that locking mechanism comes in, as well as the star exploder reroll, all ties into things. You're going to have minions that are respawning. You're going to have the pandemic-esque feel at the same time of, I go, the game goes. I go, and the game goes. And that's because each of these decks, depending on which enemy you're fighting, is going to be deploying to your individual character boards on a round-by-round basis. So one round is all 4 characters going and all 4 hazard cards going. So at the beginning of the round, as you can see here, we've got everything set up. The main things that you need to know. My characters start down here on the little arrows. You've got a few purple spots that don't actually get in the way totally of line of sight, just obstacles, if you will, that you have to go around but don't actually affect the attacking. You have the minions that are all the tokens here. You've got the orange, which is a barrier, which means that I can't see into there. It's shadowed, it's veiled from me. And so these enemies all in here are face down, which on their black and white side, which means they're inactive. So these hazard cards are going to spawn, respawn, and activate enemies. And if they're face down in that sense, they don't activate. My objectives, you can see the turrets right here that are pointing line of sight direction. And then you also have loot crates, essentially. If you pick them up, you can share them in between all of the characters, which is really good. So those are the gists of things. The last things you need to know are that when you have these character cards, for example, you can see in the upper right hand corner here, I have Garrus. You can't see the character, but you can see the important part right here. One, you can see the 2 abilities right here in blue. The unlocked abilities start with the background of blue. The other abilities that are going to be present on these boards start with black as the background. And you're actually going to be using a dry erase marker to mark off which one that you can upgrade, because once per scenario, if you kill 3 guys, that's it. You get to mark off up here, and when you get to little red arrow, boom, 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 top down, you get to mark off one of these additional skills, which are going to be unlocked for that scenario. In between the scenarios, the loyalty one down here can be unlocked, but for example, these red boxes outlined here require assassination, in that sense, marksman first. And then the last point here, you can see my cube sliding. Here's the asymmetric ability for him, and then the shields and the health. Health does not regenerate, but shields do. So if your shields are knocked out, but your health isn't, your shields regenerate regenerate at the end of every round as well. So you're going to have a way to mitigate some of that damage if you can optimally do it. We'll talk about the enemies and how they're going to be reacting as we go along. So the rest of the setup here is just me literally assigning one of these hazard cards to each of the characters and then deciding which one I want to start first in that sense. The tricky part here in this scenario, if you don't actually know it, it took me way too long, admittedly, to find this out, because the other thing you'll see on this map is there are locked doors there and an unlocked door there. Shepard is the only one that can unlock doors. I was flipping through the rule book. How do I unlock doors? How do I unlock doors? It's one of Shepard's main abilities. So I'm going to have to get Shepard over to here to either get the Centurion activated to come out to me, or I'm going to have to get the Centurion out of the way so I can go in here and go to these 3 sites to, put the objectives down in the terminals. But I have to go and get these objectives that are scattered around in the first place. I forgot to put one down there. But apart from that, that's what I'm really going to be doing on a turn-by-turn basis. So after I take it back from Garrus here, put it there, I get to roll my dice as the first move as I'm going along, right? And so, okay, we got a bunch of dice here, and we can kind of line them up here so you can kind of see what we've got going on at the bottom of this. I've only got 1 star. So Shepard's main ability here is he has command. During setup, 3 command tokens are blank side up. If you roll any stars, flip 1. If you roll 2 stars or more, flip 2 of the 3 command tokens up. If another squad selects an action die from the pool, you can flip 1 of these to change it to an enhanced action. So I basically can empower my abilities to other people. And so then I actually get to re-roll this dice as the exploder, and now it's a 2 movement. So, I need to get Shepard over here, but you can see that there's tons of enemies clogging. The Shepard's attack here, actually I forgot 3 dice, they're already loaded on Shepard, so we'll redo that. Oh, I got another star there, so I'd get 2 of these up, and then I'd re-roll this one again. Not a big deal, but I have plenty of actions, plenty of movements. I have even enhanced actions. So if I pull up his card here for a second, and this is probably the biggest criticism I can lay at this game right now, is if I have to move it around, you can see that this isn't inlaid. So the shield and the health potions are going to be, kind of moving around as well. His shoot does 1 damage to an enemy in line of fire, or if I use an enhance, it does 2. Line of fire is just straight line the 6 ways from these hexes. And so realistically, I just want to get him out there. Now I can move through my own players. I cannot move into other zones with enemies though. But these enemies are all marked here on the map of what their shields and attacks are when they get to go. And you can see here, 1 attack, 3 health. 2 attack, 2 health, 3 attack, 2 health. So I'm going to actually probably want to take out some of the guys that have the 3 attack. Now, the other interesting thing that you can see on this one right here is they have a little arrow symbol bullseye down here. That means they have a ranged attack. Otherwise, all the enemies have to be next to you. And if they're not next to you, they're going to make 2 spaces towards you when they get activated. So these below them, you can see these are the spawn symbols. And so I'm going to be having to try and take these guys out. So in theory, then, if I'm looking at Shepard, I can move 1, 2, 3 there. I take one of these 3 dice, allocate it to one of his movement dice spots, and then I have 1 enhanced, 2 enhanced over here that I can play, and then I'm going to place those on both of those, and those are going to do 2 damage. So then 1, I'm going to take this guy out. This guy goes out. I then get to mark 1 of my experience in that upper right hand corner there, so that I've got 1 experience already. Then take this guy. Well, if I do this guy 2 damage, he's only gonna do he's still gonna be alive. Now if I go again with someone else, their damage gets reset at the end of the round, not at the end of the turn. So I still have the opportunity to take him out, but I might not be able to do it because you're going to get cards. Say I'm battling 3 enemies at the setup. I didn't show you this, the other side of things, but I've got 3 different types of main minions that I'm battling: engineers, assault troopers, and guardians. And they all have the different stats here. And so that's what I'm trying to decide. Now, I don't know what my Cerebus card is here, and I don't know which one it's going to activate. Luckily, one of my other characters here, Liara, actually allows me to peek at these so I can kind of guess at that if I want to, as her special ability that gets activated by the stars. And so I don't have hers yet, but I'm going to be gathering it. Garrus's, for example, aim. It allows you to do extra damage. And then Rex is sort of your, barbarian D&D style, if you will. For each one of his tokens you get to flip back over, he does 1 damage to someone adjacent to him. And so they're very similar. They're supports, they're tanks essentially in a different way. Liara is your support, Shepard is your all-arounder. So without knowing what this is, I'm just going to go big and go home. So I'm going to get rid of this assault guy too. That's going to get me 2 experience. Now here's the other mechanism mechanism that you may or may not like, right? I have a bag right here because at the beginning of the scenario, it tells me to put 5 of each of those troopers onto the map or into the bag if, you know, I can't fit all of them on the map randomly drawn. So it's a little bit of a bag builder-esque, not really building though, it's just allocation. And these enemies are going to come in levels 1, 2, and 3. All of the enemies in this scenario are level 1s, but as the level 2s and 3s, they're going to be harder, they're going to have more iconography because there are 4 abilities on these enemy tokens that are going to change things. Some may react, some may move towards you, some may counter back, and there's also opportunity engagement, which we'll talk about if I move away from an enemy that's next to me, giving them an attack of opportunity. So essentially what I did was I took out 2 enemies, and then I allocated those dice. We'll move these to the side and we'll kind of then see what his turn is because that's all I'm doing. Now, if I get one more kill on his turn next time, I'll have the unlock ability for one of the, 3 that I can essentially do on his board, and we'll show you what those are. But then we go to his card. Activate each assault trooper, then spawn a minion at the furthest enemy empty hex. Next to the current squad mate though. So right now that would actually be this one. That's the furthest one away. Actually, you know what? I shouldn't have had that enemy right there. So I had an extra enemy down there. And then you know what? We'll do 2 damage to this guy. So we'll pretend that that guy has 2 damage as well. And I don't have the little damage markers next to me right now, but we'll just use the unlocks right now just to simulate that, if you will, right? Really scientific, really accurate, Chris here. But you know what? That's what we're doing. So I put down an extra enemy to make it super difficult for myself. But then I'm going to be activating those assault troopers. So this guy, again, doesn't have range, so he's going to move 2 spaces close to me. Assault trooper, moving 1, 2 spaces close to me. Assault trooper, 1, 2 spaces close to me. And if there were any assault troopers up here, they wouldn't activate because they're not in the field of view that I can see. But once one of my characters goes in there, all of these guys get flipped face up. Now, I can see what they are, so I know what's coming, but then that's what's going to happen. So then this goes into the discard pile, and it just sits there. Those can actually be reshuffled, so you need to be aware. Then we're just going to go to Rex here. Rex, again, I get to take these 9 dice. I don't have any enhanced actions available to me, so I get to roll these 9 dice as well again. And so we can kind of see what I get to roll here. And again, similarly, just off camera, you can see I rolled 2 stars. And then so that flips 2 of his tokens face up from calm to enraged. And enraged in this sense is going to be that proxy where if I'm next to somebody, then I get to flip those over and can do 2 damage. And that's this guy right here. I'm gonna have to get those guys away from Shepard as a whole. So I'm gonna have to be using at least a 2 move. And then I'm probably gonna be using both of the enhanced actions. And his attacks though are 4 damage if they're enhanced actions to an adjacent enemy. So he has a shotgun essentially. So I'm going to do 1, 2 damage or 2 steps there and allocate this dice up to the movement spot there. I should re-roll these stars just in case, because if I roll stars again, it explodes again. But then nope, 2 or 3 moves. I've got the 2 enhanced ones right here. I place those at the bottom of my board down here. He does 2 damage to this guy, 2 damage to this guy. Actually, I didn't even need to do the enhanced. I could have just done the regulars, and either a regular attack does 2 damage. So he gets 2 experience. I mark 2 experience off on his board. His other attack is flip all of my rage tokens to their calm side and deal 1 damage to each adjacent enemy. And so I could have actually just flipped that and used that for 1 action, which would probably been the smarter move. So let's take that back for a second and see what that would have done, right? So I had these 2 guys right here. And then if I would flip over the 2 that I just got with my stars, I only need 1 regular action to do that. And then he does 2 damage, so 1 for each token flipped over. He knocks out both of those guys, and now I've saved myself 1 potential dice so that I still have 2 potential dice to use. And so do I want to go after one of these other guys? Can I get close enough to him? Now 1, 2, 3, 4, nope. So 1, 2, I could end my movement here, pick up the objective, and maybe take that guy out. So then let's do that. Let's take that movement, 1, 2, that's going to put him over in the area over there. I'll put this on his token sheet to remind her that he has one of those objectives. And then now I can use one of those enhanced dice to do 4 damage. Now I could use a regular dice as well to do 2 damage, but then that's 3 kills already in 1 turn. So that goes back into the bag, because the only thing that does not go back into the bag are the elite enemies. And so then now I've allocated the 3 dice there as a whole. And so I've still got my 6 dice available, which I'm going to put aside. but now you can see that I'm going to have available to me an extra ability. And so without showing you and lifting this up and screwing this up, the one I'm going to choose is called Lift Grenade. Pick an enemy in his line of fire within 3 hexes, give it a biotic effect token, and move it up to 1 hex. If I use an enhanced action, move the enemy up 2 hexes instead of 1. It has 1 die spot. So why that's good and why I just have to go mark it right here is that when I get to put a biotic effect on people, enemies that have that have their attack reduced by 2 for the rest of the round. So that's not insignificant. So that is really, really actually good. And it's really helpful because if I have someone next to me, I can push them away. I could move them towards me if I don't want to move and spend the dice like I just did there as well. So then I take my hazard card. We see what my hazard card is. Activate each guardian. Then spawn a minion at the furthest empty spawn hex to the current squad mate. So the furthest one would actually be right way down here. So we'll do that first. Actually, no, we got to do that second. Let's do this in order. So Guardian here, and then this guy's an engineer. So Guardian is going to get activated, and he's always going to go closest to the current one if he can. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. And because it's 4 to the current versus 3 to the closest, they go to the closest one. So it's a little bit of a smart system, but otherwise it's relatively straightforward. And then I'm going to grab one from the bag here because, you know, it could have ended on a spawn spot right there and changed it. And then we're going to get another assault trooper here. And this one is the farthest one away. And so then that turn is done. We'll go to Liara here. Liara allows me to actually stun as well as pistol shot. Pistol shot is different because if I'm within 3 spaces, her pistol is more effective than, say, Garrus's long range weapon, where if he has 3 spaces or more, he does more damage. And so now I've got my 6 dice. I'm going to roll these and we're going to see what we get here without totally screwing things up. Now, I didn't get any stars. If I would have gotten stars, hers is the one that allows me again to peek. And so I do have 1 enhanced action. And if I was smart, I would have actually kept the enhanced action last time. So let's pretend, you know, let's retcon this and say that I did. So that I only rolled 5 of these. So I had 2 of those. So she is right here. And then I have the ability to kind of move her around and out and get her where she needs to go. But do I take out these guys? Do I go for some of the loot? You know, I need to be within 3 spaces. So I'm going to have to use one of these at least 3 movements. She then is going to stay 1, 2, 3 here. And I want her to take him out then. So then she's going to use one of her pistol shots to do 3 damage. So she's going to get an experience. This guy goes back in the bag. And then now I've got the option. I've got the stun in the line of fire, which unfortunately there's no one in my line of sight anymore. So the real question is, what else am I going to do? And honestly, I'm probably going to move another 2 spaces because she has 3 abilities at hand. One is lift, deal 1 damage to an enemy in the line of fire and give it a biotic, deal stunning, and the ability I already used. So I can't really do that. I don't have any mission objectives because I don't have any of the things I need. So I could move, and you know what? I'm going to move and go get this loot crate so you can see what the loot crate is. So grab the 3rd dice, move it over here, 1, 2, grab the loot crate, and this loot crate is a med pack. So a med pack is going to be available. There's also grenades and grenade caches, which do 2 and 3 damage respectively. And items here are given and, you know, be able to be used by anybody at any time to sort of a group effect. So then that's it. That's her turn. She's got 3. Somehow I've got 4 dice left. Oh, no, just kidding. That one's off the table there. That one's supposed to be sitting down here. So I've got 3 dice left. I'm going to play her hazard card. Defense turrets. Each turret inflicts 1 damage to a squad mate in its line of fire. So turrets are these red things. So you need to go, okay, you know what? Rex is going to take a damage. So Rex is actually going to go down to health because his shields, oh no, he had 1 shield left. He had 3 shields. So his shields are totally depleted that way. There's no line of sight there. There's no line of sight there. There's 1 line of sight here for her. So Liara's shields go down 1, and then the other turret is over here and right here. So you know, Shepard's going to take 1 shield damage as well. Shepard only has 2. And that is your turret situation as a whole. And then draw another card. and resolve it. Oh, great. Activate 2 enemy tokens closest to the current squad mate. So there's only 2 that are going to be there. So then she is going to get attacked by this trooper here. That's going to do 3 damage to her. So 1, 2, and 3. She takes a health point. So this is where my health is damaged now. So I'm not going to replenish that, but I'm going to be able to replenish, my shields after this round is over. And then this one, so this is just going to get activated, and since he has somebody in line of sight, Shepard is going to take 1 additional shield damage there. Shepard's shields are gone. Last up is Garrus here. So I have 3 dice left, and I get 1 star. Garrus's little token goes up by 1, which means his aim goes up by 1. So I get to exploder this, and I really need some actions here. And I get an enhanced action. Great. And so I can deal extra damage because he does armor-piercing rounds to enemies. But I'm going to have to get closer to somebody because he's pretty far away right now. So how am I going to do that exactly? That's going to be the trick. Because, again, I want to be at least 3 spaces away. And so that's going to be where it's going to do extra damage. And I only need to do 1 damage to that one. And I need to deal 2 damage to this guy to take him out. So thankfully, none of my hazard cards have actually spawned any additional enemies yet. That's really rare, actually. So first up, I'm going to have to move. And thankfully, I've got a 3 space to move it. Move my 3 spaces there. And so I can go 1, 2, 3. And that puts me line of sight actually with both of them, which is great, but I only have 1 attack. And so I'm going to actually, this one does 3 attack damage. This one has range, though. It only does 1 attack damage. You know what? I got to take out the assault trooper. So, you know what? I am just going to do, oh, crud, but this one's only 2 spaces away. So I can only deal 1 damage for that if they're in my line of fire. I can deal 2 damage, though, if I use my armor-piercing rounds and reduce my aim that I got from the star. So I'm going to have to do that because this one's more dangerous right now. It also protects Shepard, whose shields are gone, which is fine, okay? Reduce the aim over here on the special ability, the yellow tracker token, and so this one gets knocked off. Garrus now has 1 experience in addition, so we'll mark both of these over here for the experience, just out of camera shot there. And then I have still a 2 move available to me. And again, there's nothing within range that I'm really going to get. But maybe I just want to get out of line of sight of the turrets as well as, the character. So, you know what? I'm just going to go 1, 2, and that's still going to put me in line of sight there. But there's not a whole lot else I can do from that aspect because Shepard's the only one that's going to be able to eliminate that. Now, last hazard card of the round is going to be spawn a minion at the closest empty spawn and then activate each guardian. So this one I actually have to spawn first. Put that one back in there, shake it up a little bit, grab one, and I grabbed an assault trooper. And this was at the closest empty spawn, which was, well, it's my choice. You know what? And so I'm actually going to, knowing the order is going to change a little bit, you know what? I'll put the spawn right here. So it's a little bit further out of the way, but still within, we'll go with that. So that's going to go there and then activate each guardian, right? Well, that's assault trooper. That's an engineer. No guardians. End of round. So now at the end of the round, all of my shields are regenerated on all of the characters. And I just rinse and repeat everything that I just did. I gather up all 12 dice that are going to be available to me. And the other thing that you didn't know that goes along with this is there's going to be Paragon and Renegade rewards that you can get. There's going to be Paragon dice. You're also going to have Renegade tokens that you can spend, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly off the top of my head, it's been a little bit, that you get to mitigate to reroll. These dice are exactly the same, but it's an extra die that does not count towards your 3 actions per turn. So who's using it can get an extra action on their individual turn. So I don't have that for this scenario, but then I would just rinse and repeat here. Now moving the first player token to the next person. So just going in order, Shepard went first. So now I'm going to move over to Rex. Rex would be up first. Rex now has all of these 12 dice to deal with. And I've got Rex sitting right up here. Again, kind of a bad plan by my aspect because now I have Shepard going last to get into the door that's locked here or here. And so until I get in there, well, I can, sort of crowd control out here, but I'm not going to be able to do either of the objectives of the 3 terminals or taking out the big bad there. So, you roll the dice here, and I'm doing this very gently for the camera. So again, star increases, flips over one of the calm to rage tokens. And again, I really only have 2 enemies on the map now, though, because this guy got all his health back too because I didn't take him out. So I really need to take him out because if I don't, I know that he's potentially going to come after me this round. But unfortunately, again, Rex is a melee person. And so I need to have someone adjacent to him in his line of sight. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be. So I'm essentially going to have to spend two of my actions there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to actually end up 5 here, get the loot crate, which is, if we can do this, oh, it's the grenade cache. It's 3 damage, so it deals 3 damage to someone within range. So I've got 2 tokens there. You know what, I'll spend my medkit token to heal up Liara because she only has 3 health, and so she's really vulnerable in that sense. And then I'm going to spend, let's see, do we have just a regular action or an enhanced? I need to deal 3 damage, so is enhanced. Taking it, I should have rolled this exploder die again. Oh, get another one, flip it over, roll it again, exploder. Okay, so enhanced action, boom, down here, shotgun blast, this guy dies, and I can't get more than 1 ability per scenario. So on the upper corner, you can see right here is where I'm marking these down here at the bottom of the screen. And I have 1 column for mission 1, loyalty 1, mission 2, loyalty 2, mission 3. So I've gotten my ability, this scenario, I mean, and so I can't get a second one. Even if I kill 16 more enemies, I'm not going to get any more abilities, any more experience gathered. I'm just rocking it out, right? So that's all you need to know. So that's his 3. Then again, I didn't actually deal out the hazard cards, but we'll just take them off the top of the deck. Activate each assault trooper. Well, we got 1 assault trooper. Can't get to me, but then they can deal damage to one of these. And if it's that choice, it's actually the one with the lower health. And so this is between Garrus and Liara. And so they're both equal right now. But you know what? Garrus has Lex shield. So we're going to pretend that it goes to Garrus. And so Garrus's shields are now gone. And then spawn a minion at the closest empty hex to the current squad mate. And so then we would grab the closest one here, and this is a guardian who's going to go right there, right next to him. So then we're going to go to Liara. We have 9 dice that are available to us now, although I just grabbed 2 off of the map here, which should have been allocated there. So again, we've got 9 dice here, if I can not knock over too much stuff. Liara's got 3. Now, so we'll show you this, right? 0, 1, 1, and 2. So now I can flip up if I had actually assigned these, right? We'll assign them right now to the Shepherd, to Liara, and to Garrus. And so I can spend those and look at the next 2 or any 2 hazard cards. So let's look at these next 2 hazard cards. Liara's turn. Spawn a minion closest and activate each elite enemy. Now, I haven't actually spawned or gone in to see the elite guy, so that isn't going to do anything. This is just going to spawn a minion closest to her. So I don't really have to worry about that one. And then let's look at Garrus's. Activate each guardian and each elite. So I want to take out guardians. I know I need to take out guardians now. So I get to roll these 3 dice though. Still reset that down to 0, and let's see what we've got here. We've got a bunch of enhanced actions. I've got everything available to me. So what do I actually want to do with her? Well, before I want to do anything, I got the 1 range pistol shot for 3 damage. So boom, that's taken out. Now she actually has 2 experience. She is not having enough yet to level up, but then now I have 2 available moves to me. And you know what? I'd probably want to go and get this other objective token, or I want to try and go stun this one because I know guardians, right, on the next turn are going to be a pain in the butt. And so you know what? If I grab this 3 movement token, then we'll go 1, 2, 3. Crud. But I need line of sight though. So 1, 2, 3, and then I can get line of sight there, I believe. And then if I play one of these tokens, these action tokens, I can stun this guardian. That guardian gets stunned. Now, if I had to move Rex, if Rex's turn hadn't gone, he would not, this guy, get an attack of opportunity as I'm trying to move away. So that's something, again, to be aware of. I've allocated my 3 dice there, and now we're all set from that aspect of things. And so now we've got the 6 dice left as well, but we got to activate the hazard card, spawn a minion at the closest empty spawn point. So reaching into the bag again to Liara, and the closest spawn point, I've got 1, 2, I've got 1, 2. And so I've got Garrus going next, and this is an assault trooper. So you know what? Garrus actually likes to be away, but we'll actually spawn it right there because I have a feeling Garrus is going to be able to take him out. Although actually, you know what? I don't want it next to Garrus because otherwise, like I just said, attack of opportunity. So there we go. We roll these dice, move these out of the way from that side of things. Again, 3 stars there. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So now I've got 2 extra damage from an armor piercing round if I want to use it. And again, I get to roll these exploder dice a second time. So again, I just have regular actions here. Whoops. And just regular movement there. So how am I going to want to do this? And the line of fire 3 hexes away, but it's only going to do 1 damage because it's not enhanced. And then 1 damage plus your current aim value if I can get the line of fire. So my current aim value is 2. So I could take out this Guardian, or I could take out this Assault Trooper, and it's going to be a little bit of overkill. But you know what? I just need to take them out. So we're going to spend 3 movement there. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll spend the action for the armor piercing rounds, move this back down, deal damage. That gives him actually a level up. Marksman is the one ability that's available. I could do proximity mines. I could do Turian Rebel. All of these are slightly different here. You know what? Marksman is kind of nice. I can use an action die to increase that aim to do essentially 2 extra damage around. Or proximity mines, I can grab 3 proximity tokens when it's unlocked and used again when in subsequent missions. When an enemy moves into or spawns into a hex that's adjacent to Garrus, you may discard a proximity mine token to deal 2 damage to that enemy. Yeah, that sounds pretty freaking sweet. So we'll grab 3 tokens here, and then we'll use them whenever they get close to Garrus. And then we have 1 more 3 movement here for Garrus. And so we will go 1, 2, 3, because we need to get over here and get these objective tokens that are sitting right out here too. So that is Garrus's turn. And we know Garrus's card again because we looked at it. Activate each Guardian. Well, there's no Guardian to activate because that one's stunned, and each elite enemy. Nothing to worry about there from that last standpoint. And then we go back to Shepard, and we only have 3 dice here for Shepard, so we're gonna have to kind of see what we get. 2 stars. Oh, 2 awesome exploders. So now he has all his command points. I completely forgot about his ability. When another squad mate selects a die, I could have actually made that. Shoot, I should have used that on Garrus's turn because I could have saved myself a die or his aim. Essentially, I can upgrade the enhanced action. So I got all of my command ones flipped over now, and now I've got 2 actions and or 2 moves to go along with that. In his regular action, I can unlock a door bordering the hex, or I can turn off a turret, or I can deal damage to an enemy in a line of fire sight. So 1 damage in the line of sight. So I've got somebody in line of sight already, and I could do 2 damage. That wouldn't take out the Guardian though, and so that kind of sucks. And so that's not enough to quite do it. So I'd really like to do something good on this turn, but I don't really have anything good, and that kind of irritates me. So I have 4 additional movement and 1 action that I could use to turn off a turret, I guess. So, you know, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4 and turn off this turret. And there are special little tokens in the box, and you just basically put the little turret token over here to indicate that it's disabled, and that is the end of the turn. I'll end it there because I could play this scenario for probably 3 or 4 more rounds because of how slow this is going, but that is the game in a nutshell. That is Mass Effect round by round by round. That's 2 example rounds for you to kind of get the gist of things. Now, the only thing I didn't cover here is the enemy elite token. Let's say that Shepard could have gotten over here and unlocked the door and gone in. Then all of these tokens are going to get flipped face up. And I have to end my movement on one of the terminals and deposit one of these that's already available. And so if I was to say fight the Centurion you'll notice here on the bottom of his token doesn't quite have the same markings as the other enemies. It has the 2 attack, but it has X damage. And on the other side of this map right here, it actually shows you the elite enemies. And so you have to deal X amount of damage in one go, and then anything carried over is lost. So there's a 6, a 6, and a 7. So if I deal 7 damage in the first one, it's not 6 and then 1 to the second level. It's 7 damage to the first one. It wipes out the level of the 6 that's there, and that 1 extra damage is just lost. But if I did that in separate attacks, like if I could deal 6 damage as 1 attack and 6 damage as another attack, that would take out 2 of the 3 levels. You take out all 3 levels, the elite minion is defeated in this case. Otherwise, I'm having to go and deposit here on my last movement of getting there and dealing with the objective tokens that are dropped. That is how you're going to be doing things. You're going to be having mixing and matching, and then based off of those, if we slowly slide this out of place and we move this aside so you can kind of get a better picture of what this is going to look like here, you have essentially the blown up version of this objective that I talked about, disabling the mainframe. You have defeating the elite minion. You have the, if you're holding on to the explosives, and I didn't even tell you about that, but those objective tokens, if I want to discard one of them and return it and just lose it altogether, it deals 5 damage to an enemy next to me. So that's freaking good. Now you can also have failure. And I didn't talk about failure. Failure is if Shepard is dead, or because at the end of this one it says, and I didn't show you any of those cards, none of those came up in this round. There are hazard cards in here that say, if you get 3 of these cards set aside, shuffle all of these cards back in. And it's saying if you have to shuffle this 3 times, then you fail as well. So all of these missions are going to have variabilities like that. And so you can kind of see what each of these is going to look like a little bit. Again, different dynamics, different things that are going to be alongside of it. The doors, these are refugees that you're going to be having to potentially rescue, leading the way across. Again, you can kind of see how it's going to be more sectioned. 2 birds, 1 stone. If each time an enemy is defeated by a sensory tentacle, get a progress box checked off. So there's a lot of dynamic going on here. Sabotaging mechs. Again, it's not all just smash and grab in this mission book. So what are my thoughts on this? Who's going to like this? Who isn't going to like this? Truth be told, again, looking at this and seeing it, it's clearly a love effect for this game as a whole. The abilities that are present on these, individual characters are unique. They're creative. They're dynamic. Warping. When enemy is adjacent to Shepard suffers damage, it suffers a biotic token as well. So the combos that you can get on all of these, the only thing that I fear is you might just find your favorite after playing, 3 or 4 missions. So the second time you go and play this through, you may make the exact same character spec of Shepard here. I didn't mention that, but I talked about it at the beginning where you need to have 4 of these characters at once, Shepard and 3 helpers. Now there is an additional helper here. You have Tali, who actually controls a drone as well. So that's an additional thing. Now I didn't talk about this other aspect because it's a little bit less common, but it will happen. On the back side of these sheets, you have to flip them over if your enemies ever down your characters. And you have to lock 3 dice until you go and use the revive action to flip them back over, put them at 1 health, and recharge. And so that's available. So it's not just get knocked out and lose. It's get knocked out and lose if you're the player that's Shepard, but if you're one of the other ones, it's not. But I can see Eric Lang's heavily influence on the exploder dice with the star that you're going to be doing there, but then also on just the fact that it gives me Marvel United vibes in the sense that the mechanisms of what you're doing, right? I have a star, I have arrows, and I've got basically sort of an action generic, right? But the ways in which that is manipulated in so much difference and asymmetry with all 5 of these characters is, again, truth be told, it's rather astonishing. And that's what the Marvel United enemies do, right? If you're familiar with just the 3/4 iconography situation there, and it just monopolizes on that in such a creative, unique way. And so I absolutely love it. I really, really am enthralled by the fact that it also gives you those 2 different ways to win. Because if you want to slobber knocker it, it says, you know what, the game goes, yeah, you can do that. You're not going to get as good a score overall. I don't have any affiliation with this, video game, but I know that this video game is not just a straight shoot 'em up first person shooter, right? Its actions have consequences. And you know what? If you're smarter, if you're working harder in this game, you're going to have a better score. You're going to get better rewards. First time I completed that scenario I just showed you, I had enough of those objectives. So spoilers here, right? I held on to all of the other objectives that I didn't need. And then I actually got an extra ability unlock right away with the character. So already I've got another ability unlocked on a character going into the next mission, which again, the abilities on this thing are just freaking amazing. Yeah, you might get a little peeved by the fact that, oh, these are all red locked. You know what? Choose accordingly. It's a tech tree situation. It's not difficult to manage in that sense. It's not frustrating. That was my other big fear. I opened this rulebook up. Like I said, fantastic rulebook, by the way. I don't say that a lot about rulebooks, especially even at the retail side, especially at the dungeon crawl side of things, right? And I said, oh, geez, I am not a big fan of games that require, regardless of player count, 4 characters. Truth be told, I've played this almost exclusively all solo, and it's not been a trouble to manage like I was fearing. This is probably the smoothest crawl of managing more than one character that I've ever done. Multi-handed is not an easy accomplishment in a lot of these. Yeah, you know what? I screwed up and I missed Shepard's ability that I talked about in the playthrough, right? Where I could have upgraded the action into an enhanced action once or twice. But otherwise, you know, you don't have 6 different things, or you don't have to worry about, you know, this, then this minutia that ends up happening with these games when you start unlocking more abilities. And it's just so refreshingly smooth and streamlined. And again, I wasn't expecting that of this game. I thought this game was going to be just sort of a little bit of an IP grab, to be frank with you. Again, transparency, right? I said, this is probably going to be a game that's Mass Effect in name and generic mechanics. And, you know, it's like another one that I recently played with a video game-based IP situation, Far Cry. And it just kind of left me feeling like, what? And this gave me the opposite feeling. The dice rolling, again, I wasn't expecting to like the dice rolling, right? You've got these dice, you're slowly getting them allocated down. And truth be told, again, on the first player or two, when you've got 12 and 9 dice respectively, it's not a very hard decision. You're gonna have plenty of options. You know, when you start to get more strategic though at the same time, how can I optimize out? Like you saw in a turn or two where I said, oh, if I actually do this instead of this, it's going to save me that 1 die, which allows me to do more dynamically on the table. That's going to be really, really helpful, because in that scenario playthrough that I did, you know, I drew a lot of cards that weren't spawning a ton of enemies. The last time I played that mission, I was spawning enemies literally for like the first 6 player turns. And so that map was actually relatively empty compared to the last time I played it, when it was literally almost full and I was having to take guys out left and right on every single turn and having to slowly get my way even over there in the first place. So completely different experience based on this deck than it was last one. And this doesn't even include the deck that's on the other side of things for the other enemies as a whole. So 2 different experiences, 2 different enemies, 3 levels of the enemies that you'll be dealing with, whole bag full of elite minions here as well that are all different. 3 other different special icons on those enemies that I didn't touch on that are going to choose or change how their AI system reacts in terms of coming towards you or defending themselves or moving away, or that line of sight. And line of sight being very straightforward. Again, not a whole lot of little things to, you know, remember. It's just straightforward. So appreciated. The shields recharging is freaking amazing. The enemies not recharging until the end of the round, it balances it out. This line of sight is simple and straightforward. There's a little bit of high ground, low ground that you're dealing with. And again, I didn't even mention a few other elements of things, right? There's fast travel locations, there's bonus loot locations. I mentioned the elevation change. You have inferno spots that deal damage if you land in them. You've got coolant leak spots. You've got a whole bunch of other symbology down here at the bottom that's relatively straightforward in all the stuff that I just kind of said. And again, the campaign is really easily laid out and understood from that aspect of things. The narrative book, which I really didn't touch on at all either. Again, you just kind of flip open. It's relatively straightforward. It says you get this, this, or that. Go read this one and then move on to the next portion of things. Get rewarded, take the penalty, whatever else it may be, and see how you did. I mean, and that's going to be the question is it enough for you heavy crawl type people? Again, I love the Spiral Bound notebook. Everything fits on one page for the map. That's freaking insane. I haven't seen that anywhere else. And this is all in a regular sized box that is easily going to fit on your shelf. And so that in and of itself is an accomplishment. I mean, this is the equivalent of a Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion-esque vibe. It's a minor side point that I have to mention though. This is the insert. The miniatures, the dice, all of the tokens, the cards, I mean, this is an insert that actually frickin' works. Plastic cover over the top right here. Throw the boards on the little bit of everything else in there right here. Extra bags to go along with it. And it's absolutely top-notch even from that aspect of things. The only question is, again, miniatures? No, they're not needed. They're completely unnecessary. That's probably the least cohesive part of this, is that you could have done standees for a slightly more reduced price point. And truth be told, I don't know what the price point is at the time of me filming this. I just know that it's going to be available for pre-order. But I'd almost prefer it because Otherwise, it will be the complete package for me in terms of an aesthetic and price-wise, because I just know that that's going to be slightly higher. But I don't think it's missing a whole lot either, because the dynamics of the abilities make up for the simplicity of the individual actions. It's a beautiful yin and yang there, and this is by far and away one of the best crawlers, if not, the best crawler I've played this year. This and Tales from the Red Dragon Inn. Tales from the Red Dragon Inn is going to be more, expansive. You're going to have more options. You're going to have more stuff. But this is going to be more streamlined. This is going to be easier to get to the table. This is going to be easier to teach even. This is just going to have less in that way, in a good sense. So, 1A to 1B, if you will. It makes me think of something like Nemesis and what could have been with a more streamlined, absolutely clear approach. Not necessarily because Nemesis is bad, but just because of all of the minutia and errata. And so in that same sense, this avoids that pitfall of trying to do too much. There is such a thing as an embarrassment of riches, and this game stealthily avoids that trap. Although on the outsides, truth be told, it has all the appearance of it in the first place, and I was one of those that was fooled. So, mea culpa, you did a freaking sweet job here with this game, is what I'm saying. Is it going to have the vast replayability that you want? No. I mean, you're going to have a general sense of these missions, but like I said, you can go 1A, 1B, 1C, and that's going to give you 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. So you can do a different combination of those, which is going to give you maybe, if you want, again, abilities, but you're not going to be able to unlock all the abilities. So you may have some more customization, but it could be a little too many bonesy in the sense that you may find there's a build that's better for you. And, you're going to have a slightly different group dynamic depending on which of these characters you include and which one gets excluded. Shepard's always going to be in there. The rest are all in flux. But one support with a, drone to help you out, and then 2 sort of tanks in a different way. So where is your preference? And you could easily, if you really wanted to, I probably wouldn't recommend it, but you could probably swap this out without too much difficulty. A little house rule, swap over experience and amount of abilities unlocked. I mean, the only thing that would be an issue is those loyalty scenarios in between that you're going to be eventually having one ability to be able to unlock if you complete it. But those are sort of like frosting on the cake. If the cake is really good, the frosting is just extra, and it's extra, extra good. But you don't need too much of it either, right? Too much, too sweet, throws the balance off of the cake in the first place, and that's what you want to avoid as well. And this game, again, it really impressed me from that aspect. Nothing disjointed, nothing that doesn't fit, nothing that's a question mark of why this is included. The dynamics, the appearance, the actuality of it, the enemy decks of the you go, enemy go, round done dynamic is just fine-tuned, and it shows. So, truth be told, I am exceedingly surprised at how good this game actually is. So if this intrigues you, like if you're a Mass Effect person and you were going, oh geez, I'm just going to buy this because I'm a sucker for Mass Effect. Well, now you can actually say I'm a sucker for Mass Effect and I'm actually going to get a pretty freaking sweet game alongside of it. So you don't have to worry about it's one of those either ors, especially on crowdfunding, where you're kind of like, well, I got the good miniatures. Is there a game to go along with this? No, there's a game here first. It ties into the Mass Effect second, and then it's just whether or not the pricing is going to be something that you want to pay in that sense. Because the accessibility and the gameplay, which again always triumphs over everything, is all there. There's no worry from that standpoint. So there you go. Modipus, they sent it to me, and I'm as surprised as you are. It's a good freaking game. Check it out. Mass Effect. There you go. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, or concerns. Subscribe down below. Peace out. Stay classy. Have a great freaking fantastic day.